What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another video. Today we're doing the October reading wrap up. And can I just say, this month's reading was insane. Now, I do want to preface this by saying there was a 24-hour readathon that I did do during this period of time, and I was audibling and physically reading multiple of these books at the same time. I listen to Audible at an insane speed when I have a physical copy of the book with me. Usually I can listen to the book at about 3 to 3.5 speed, which is the max speed that you can go on Audible, and then I will physically keep up with it on the book as well. I do also want to mention that some of the books are only on my Nook, or actually no, only 2 of the books were on the Nook physically, and then I did have a couple of books that I tag teamed between my Kindle, my Audible, and the physical copy of the book. That being said, I have a total of 25 books to get through. Let me just say, October was an insane reading month for me. Insane. I have never hit that many books before in my life, but I figured what better way to start off the fun. Also, just wanted to shout out to my nail lady for doing such a great job with these Halloween nails. Like, they're just so freaking cute. But yes, so with that being said, this was a spooky month of reading. All of the books had to do with that October vibe. So if that's not really your thing, then I do apologize, but most of the books are going to focus in that realm. So lots of vampires, lots of witches, lots of magic, lots of fae, like fairy tale, that type of vibe. For those who are new, welcome to the channel. I am Jaya and I talk about all things related to books. I am absolutely obsessed with books. I am also a big collector. For those who don't know or can't tell, I love collecting special editions of books. I love collecting books that I've really enjoyed and loved. And I just enjoy the physical touch and feel of a book. That being said, I also do have the Kindle app with the Kindle Unlimited. So you will see in this channel that I tag team between that and the physical books. I also do have a Nook, but that's primarily because I was in the past very invested in my Nook, especially when I was in, my residency time frame. It was simple, easy to throw in a bag and go, especially when you had to stay at the hospital, but you couldn't go home, but you don't want to carry a book around. It just came in really handy, and I love the idea of supporting Barnes & Nobles, which is one of our still standing brick and mortar paper book sellers. But I do think the Kindle Unlimited is absolutely amazing. I am potentially considering, because this Kindle that I have is very new, returning it and getting the Kindle Color Soft. I did recently do another video that talks about the comparison between the Kindle and the Nook. So if that's something you're interested in, you can definitely check out that video as well. That being said, I basically talk about everything related to books and other randomness here and there, whether that be travel, whether that be fashion, whether that be fun little outings as I'm learning this new area that I've moved to. I've recently moved to the West Coast in the United States. I'm originally from Central, so I'm originally from Texas, and I did do my medical training up in the Bay Area in California and lived like a nomad for about 6 months of my life when I was in medical school as well, because we do something called externships. So at that point, I lived in Arizona, Boston, Seattle, California, Texas, all over the place basically, and then finally ended up back in the Bay Area for residency, moved to Texas for a few months, and now I'm back on the West Coast with my husband. So that being said, it's a very new space, a new area for me, and I love finding little coffee shops, reading corners and things like that. So I like sharing that aspect of my journey as well. If there's any specific videos that you guys want to see or anything that would be entertaining for you, then definitely let me know in the comments. I love reading the comments. I love creating this community where we can talk about books together. So if that sounds like it is the right place for you, then definitely consider hitting that subscription and notification bell, the subscription button and the notification bell, because I do put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday. For those of you who are returning, thank you so much for coming back and supporting me. It is such a pleasure to be able to do these videos and share all of these experiences with you. Just as a preface, before we jump into this one, it is going to be long, so please grab yourself a cup of tea or a glass of wine or, a juice, whatever floats your boat, wherever it is that you are. Is it a morning? Is it evening? Whatever suits your needs in this moment. I do recommend either grabbing food, drink, or both because this is going to be a long one. Just so everyone knows, I typically read anywhere between 10 to 14 books a month. That is probably the average. I would say the lower end months, if I'm super busy or I just don't have the time to like sit down and really focus on reading, or I'm going through a reading slump, I'll probably hit anywhere between 6 to 7 books a month. And then this is an insane high for me. I don't think I've ever read this many books, but I've read 25 books this month, and they are not short books, which I will be sharing shortly. Yeah. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I will, in the description below, also break down the different genres, what I've read, all that good stuff. I don't even know where this is insane. Like, if I could show you, I mean, you saw the whatchamacallit. I'm dating myself, guys. I'm dating myself. But when you guys saw this video pop up on YouTube, you guys did see the picture for the video. So you know there's a ridiculous number of books that are stacked on my desk right now, and I'm kind of terrified of it. But here we go. In fact, my best friend is actively texting me as I'm talking to you because even she looked at the books that I read. This is what my desk looks like right now, guys. That's insane. That is what we're dealing with. But let's get into it because I'm actually super excited to talk about these October reads. Also, I apologize for looking like a little blueberry, but today was just a blue kind of day. And shout out to Aloe Yoga for making super comfortable like sweat sets because I'm obsessed with this entire set. It's just so cute. It's this with just a pair of baggy sweatpants and I'm good to go. Also, drink of the day. Today we are drinking a mango green tea, which I am super excited to drink in the lovely Harry Potter Hogwarts mug, as it does happen to be October. It has the crest on it, and then on the back it says Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizarding. I absolutely adore this mug. I got it from the Universal Studios park in, I want to say this was the Orlando one, but I know they also have it in LA as well. Okay. So after that 7-minute long intro, let's get into the actual video, shall we? Okay, so first up, with no particular reading order with this, I read a book called Dreadful. I absolutely love this book. It's so cute. This is the Barnes & Noble's special edition of this book. It was written by Caitlin Rozakis. It's basically following the story of a wizard who wakes up in his evil castle with no memories. He has completely forgotten who he is, what he does, where he is. He's under the impression that he is being kept captured by an evil wizard in his lair, only to realize that he is in fact the evil wizard. He also has a princess that is tucked away inside of his castle as well and is there by force. He also realizes as he starts trying to figure out who he is and what's going on in his life that maybe he doesn't want to be an evil wizard, but plans are already moving forward and there are other evil wizards who are going to be coming to his town. Meanwhile, the town that he's sitting in, that he is the evil lord of, is doing poorly and they haven't had crops, but they've grown a ton of garlic. So there's also a garlic festival that might be happening. And of course, there's heroes amok that are trying to come into his evil wizarding castle and save the princess and stop the evil wizard. The only catch in all this is he has no clue what's going on, and he's also actively finding and redefining himself as well. Very, very entertaining book, super fun, super fast paced. It was not the best book to me. It was not the worst book to me. I think this is like a solid 2.8 to 3-star read for me. Is it something that I'm going to recommend to everybody? Probably not. Am I going to remember this book forever? Probably not, but I'll have fond memories of it. And if anyone were to ask me, I need a book to read in October, or I need a cozy fall read, this is definitely something that I could see myself potentially recommending to someone if they do want something that's that October spooky vibe, but also just fun, fast-paced, easy read and kind of cozy mystery vibes. So that's the first book on our list. We have Dreadful. Okay, I'm gonna create some space. on the other side of my desk so I can start stacking these books because there's a lot of them. It's a little terrifying how many of them there actually are. Okay, so book number 2. I am part of 2 different book clubs. The first one is called the Overbooked Book Club. We meet on Zoom and it is on Facebook. If you are interested in joining our group, please go check us out. I don't actually let any of the patrons into the club. That is actually done by one of my co-hosts who's helping run this particular website, but I am the one who usually puts out the polls for the books that we're going to read and like what we want to when we're going to talk about the Zoom meetings and all that kind of stuff. So if that sounds like something that would be up your vibe, then definitely consider looking into that group on Facebook. We do vote on all of our books. I usually post them about a month or so before, maybe a month and a half before the actual day that we're going to meet. And it's usually pertaining to the season or a theme. It's a lot of fun. I would love to see you guys there if you want to join. The other book club that I'm a part of is called Paper and Glam. It is run by a wonderful woman named Lisa Marie Landreth and a wonderful women in this group. They are a bookish community that is also rooted in a sense of culture and heritage, as well as having a God and Glam separate group that they run as well within the umbrella of Paper and Glam. So they also talk about all things Christianity. I do apologize if I said any of that incorrectly, but they're a wonderful group of women. And we also have a non-denominational reading group, which is the Paper and Glam Book Club, and they meet also once a month. Typically, we do vote on the titles for the books that we're going to read, but we vote on those a year in advance. So for the month of October, the book that we read was The Picture of Dorian Gray. All I can say is Oscar Wilde is considered a classic artist for a reason. This book is considered a classic for a reason. For me personally, this was a very thought-provoking book. I think it's very interesting, the question that one might have about morality, actions and choices that you make, company that you keep, and how that reflects physically on our body versus the mental strain that we take on. For those who don't know, The Picture of Dorian Gray is basically following the story of a young man who is considered to be exceptionally handsome, exceptionally good looking, and comes from a very wealthy family. He is initially praised for his innocence and his beauty, and there's an artist who captures a likeness of him in a painting. Fast forward, and basically in a situation of angst, the young man happens to wish upon this painting, I wish that this painting would age instead of me, and miraculously, that's what happened. So Dorian continues to look young and beautiful and continues to look that youthful self with a picture of innocence, but his picture, on the other hand, is what is continuing to age, almost as if you had your soul mirrored in an image that you can consistently look at. It's a very powerful novel. It talks a lot about society. It talks a lot about the idea of right and wrong. It talks a lot about the company that we keep. It talks a lot about the power of thought and the power of a conscience. It's very, very interesting. And I think particularly in the political climates that we're in right now, and with society being what it is now, and with so many things consistently happening around us all the time, it's definitely one of those books that will make you pause, that'll make you think, that'll make you reevaluate. And all I can say is there's a reason it is a classic. This was a great read for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It pulled out a lot of emotions from me. I actually had to take a few days away from reading when I finished this book because it was so overwhelming for me thinking about this book that I did have to put a pause on it. But lovely read. Thoroughly enjoyed this and would definitely recommend. This is a 4.5 stars for me. Oakley Poakley. Next up we have, I like my hoodie on. The next book that we have is My Vampire Plus One by Jenna Levine. She had actually written another book last year called My Roommate is a Vampire, and that one was very, very funny. It follows Cassie and her roommate, Frederick, And it was absolutely hilarious. And the reason I picked this book up is because Reggie, who is the main male character in this book, is supposed to be was introduced in the first book as our main male lead's best friend in that book, and is absolutely a goofball. He is currently being targeted by the Vampire Society for something that happened centuries ago, and basically they want to bring him to justice. So naturally he's trying to hide. Meanwhile, he bumps into our female lead, Amelia Collins, who happens to be in a need of a fake date for a cousin's wedding that is coming up, because she inadvertently tells her family that she is seeing someone. So, hello? Don't know what that was about, but basically, I would not give this a thumbs down, actually. We're going to give it a thumbs up. I don't know why that had just happened. But yeah, funny book, very entertaining, very fast-paced, very easy, perfect for spooky season. Is it going to change your life? No. Is it perfect for the October vibes? Absolutely. I would give this book a solid 3 stars. Next up, this book is actually a book that my best friend and I had picked up in a haul that we did together at Barnes & Noble's. In fact, that video is also on my YouTube channel, so if you are interested in just taking a sneak peek at the crazy things that we do in that video, please feel free to click on that. It's basically a girls' weekend with one of my besties. So in that video, we do happen to go to Barnes & Noble's, and we did decide that we're going to pick up Filthy Rich Fae by Geneva Lee. We had both heard good things about this author. She does have another series that's about vampires that's also in the same world, and I believe the title is also very similar. It's a Filthy Rich Vampire, a Crazy Rich Vampire, something like that. But basically, this book is taking place in the world of New Orleans. There is a drug that is loose in the streets, and it's causing a lot of damage to the patrons, and it is significantly impacting a lot of the youngsters that are coming through the ER. Our main character, Kate, is actually an ER nurse, and so she sees the brunt of the drug that's now being called Trinity. And the belief is that this is being streamlined into the streets by the Gage family, which are some of the most powerful members of the society. Her brother inadvertently ends up getting into trouble, and she goes out of her way to rescue him by going directly to the Gage lair and talking to Lachlan Gage, who is the leader, and miraculously finds herself in a world of Fae, because the only thing that he is willing to barter for is her soul. It's a very interesting read. It definitely starts off very modern vibes, so you do have cell phones, you have, ERs and nurses and all this kind of stuff, but very quickly it delves into magic and Fae and all that kind of stuff. It's an interesting read. It's a fun read. It's a fast-paced read. I liked the way that the cliffhanger ended. Do I see myself picking up the sequel to this? Probably. Is it the highest on my list? No. But is it perfect for the October vibes? Yes. I would also give this book another 3-star rating. Next up, okay, India Holton, guys. I love this woman. I don't know how she does it, but this book was so freaking cute. So this book is called The League of Gentlewoman Witches. It's actually the second book in the Wisteria Society. I actually read this one first. So I need to go back and read the first one, and eventually I need to read the third one. But basically, this is a story about a bunch of women who are living in London, right? And they are witches. And they can't be found out to be witches because they don't want to be burnt at stake. But basically they are witches, and the way that they are witches is that they steal from the poor to give to the, they steal from the rich to give to the poor, and also are demure ladies of society, always loving a little bit of gossip. Now, in this book, the worst enemies that the witches have are, of course, the pirates. The pirates and the witches both have magic in their systems, but they have completely different ways of looking at magic and looking at life. So she ends up trying to track down a rogue amulet that the society wants to get their hands on because of power. Unfortunately, said amulet falls into the hands of a rival witch who also happens to steal away the man that had the amulet last, who was betrothed to one of the pirates. Needless to say, she and a fellow pirate end up trying to track down this amulet and get caught up in a world of adventure and unfortunate attraction between the two of them. Although, God forbid, she falls for a pirate because she is a witch. So funny, so cute. Loved this book. Perfect for this season. Also, if you guys like Bridgerton, very Bridgerton vibes. It's so much fun. Love that London society. Love that vibe. Would definitely recommend. I rated this book a 4.5 stars. All right, then we have Hooked by Emily McIntyre. So Emily McIntyre is known for writing novels that are in the A Never After series. Basically, it's retellings of classic children's, movies, cartoons, things like that in an adult setting, and usually with a twist. So this one is following the story of Hooked, who is related to Captain Hook, and Wendy, who is the daughter of Peter Pan, and happens to be a very, very, very wealthy young daughter that is neglected and just wants her father's attention and wants to, stand by her own bootstraps. Hook is a gang lord, basically. He is feared across the realm, or the modern day society, if you will. Very, very, very intense background. He's gone through a lot of abuse, a lot of pain in order to become what he is now. But he is essentially one of the biggest gangster Don lords of the town, and they basically end up crossing paths. It's very cute. There are definitely hints and pointers that she pulls from Peter Pan, which is definitely fun for me to see because I'm a big Disney lover. I also just really liked the retelling of the story, the main characters in this being Hook and Wendy. So if that sounds like something you would enjoy, it's definitely a fun read. It is a lot darker. It's definitely meant to be adult fantasy fiction. It is not in any way, shape, or form true to the Peter Pan story. So if that's something that you would enjoy, and you would enjoy that retelling where the villain wins for a change, then definitely worth reading. I loved this so much that I've actually ordered a set of special editions of her books. I'm excited for those to arrive, hopefully in the next few months or so, from the Bookish Box. So looking forward to that. But I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a solid 4 stars. Would recommend if you're looking for a dark romantasy. It is spicy, just so you know. This is a spicy book. Also, Filthy Rich Fae was also a very spicy book. The other books have not been spicy so far, but this one I would say was a solid 4 out of 5, like 3.5 to 4 out of 5 chilies. All right, then Ali Hazelwood is an author that has taken the internet by storm. She is talked about everywhere for her STEM romances, as well as her young adult book, as well as her supernatural book, which was Bride. This was one of the first books I picked up this month. It was so cute, so funny. Basically, it's the story of Misery. Misery is a vampire. She is born to the vampire counselor, king, chief, whatever he is. He's like the head vampire, and she is born to him. She gets sent as tribute to the human embassy, I guess is the best way to compare it. She gets sent as collateral to the humans, that in the off chance there's ever any negativity between vampires and humans, that they can kill her. It's basically meant to be a peace treaty. So she hasn't really lived with vampires. She grew up with humans. She hasn't really been accepted by vampires. She also hasn't been accepted by humans. And now she finally returns back to the vampire court and hears from her father, oh, by the way, remember how we kind of like sent you to the human realms to keep peace? Well, we kind of need you to do the same thing again and marry a werewolf so that, we can maintain peace treaties with the werewolf. They've already accepted. Are you okay with it? Basically following the story of what happens after she accepts the marriage proposal and she gets married into this werewolf family. It is very funny. It is very cute. There is a little bit of spice in it. It's a very limited scene. Most of it is about the banter between the two characters. People either love it or hate this book. I just went in like for a good time and for fun value. I think for October it was perfect. Do I think it's the most amazing book on the planet? No. Do I think for Ali Hazelwood it is a good book? Yes, especially as it's her first paranormal romance book. I did really enjoy it. So I gave this book a solid 3.5 stars. I do think it was very entertaining and I would recommend. Definitely a fun, fast-paced read and perfect for October. Next up, I have Beautiful Villain. Beautiful Villain is following the story of a vampire and Daisy. This is a retelling of Great Gatsby, again, where the ending is a little bit different. Maybe the villain wins. You do have references to people like Myrtle and Tom. You also have, of course, like the sidekick brother. You have Daisy. You have Gatsby. So it's just a really fun book. Rebecca Kenny, I think, does a really good job of kind of revamping that Gatsby vibe. So lots of parties, lots of like glamour, lots of gold, lots of money. But basically the story follows Daisy Finnegan, who is looking forward to the next steps in her life after college. She recently broke up with her ex, who happened to cheat on her, and he keeps haunting her doorstep. But in the midst of all this, when she goes out partying and she's having a good time, she happens to be connected to a stranger, only to find out that it was a childhood friend that she has never really forgotten and is kind of the one that got away. In the midst of all of this, there's also questions of darker creatures and vampires and things like this. This is basically a dark romantasy Gatsby vampire retelling. It's fun, it's gilded, it's great, and it's beautiful. I absolutely think this book is stunning. Would definitely recommend for spooky vibes. It's fun, it's fast-paced. I would give this a solid 3.25 stars. It's not something that I'm ever going to write home about per se, but I do look forward to the next book. She's releasing the next book in this series in a couple of months. I want to say in earlier next year. And it's actually going to be the retelling of The Picture of Dorian Gray. So I am excited to see how that book plays out as well. But yes, would definitely say if you enjoy classics, but you want a little twist on it and you still want something that's spooky and fun, would definitely recommend reading Beautiful Villain. Next up, this book, 5 stars. 5 freaking stars. It is spicy. It does have a lot of trauma. There's a lot of dark topics that are discussed in this book. I'm not going to say the title, but it's by St. Addy, and it's incredible. It's basically the Mindfuck Series. It is following the story of a revenge serial killer who happens to fall in love with the FBI agent who's the profiler for her case. It is very entertaining to understand where she's coming from, why she's doing the things that she's doing. It's very beautiful to watch the relationship between the FBI agent and this woman. You get a little bit of perspective from both characters, so you get to look at it from the perspective of Logan, who's the FBI agent, as well as from our serial killer. And it is great. Just stunning. This is one of the books I read in the 24-hour readathon, and so I ended up finishing this in a day and a half, which is insane because this is a hefty book. This is like 600 something odd pages, but it's actually 5 novellas that have been strung together. Each book is about 130, 140 pages, so if you wanted to read one at a time, that would be very reasonable, very feasible. But this is definitely a book that will live on my shelf. It's probably something I'll reach for again in the future just because I loved it so much. And it is definitely a book that I think needs to be talked about more, especially for spooky season. But if you like the vibes of Butcher and Blackbird, if you like the vibes of, Leather and Lark, and that entire world, you are going to like this book. It is very, very, very fun. It does have a lot of graphic scenes. It can get a little gruesome, but very well written. If you're not looking for spice and you're not looking for dark and you're not looking for blood and gore, this is not the book for you. But if you're looking for something fun, spicy, enjoyable, where you actually are kind of rooting for both characters in the book, as well as taking down a corrupt system and supporting this revenge killer, then this is definitely your jam. Okay, so next up, I have the book that we read for the Overbooked Book Club this month, and that was Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. This book is also, I think, it's just stunning. This is the Fairy Loot version of this book. I'm so lucky I got my hands on these, but they're beautiful. That being said, this book was very entertaining. It is one of the original books that came out in the vampire genre. Like, I'm talking before Twilight even, like before it even became a craze. So keep that in mind when you go into this. It's also about young adult characters. It's taking place in a vampire academy school where we're basically following Lisa, who happens to be one of the Morai, or the princesses in the vampire community, and you're following her bodyguard, who is our tough sidekick, like great character. Also another main character whose name I am currently blanking on, Rose. Rose is also great in this. Basically, it's a coming of age kind of novel. It definitely does have dark depths. You do have, crazy attacks going on, plots and all that kind of stuff. It is a fun, fast-paced book, but it reads young adult. So just keep that in mind when you read it. I do think it was entertaining. Is it anything I'm going to write home about? No, but I would still give this book a solid 3.5 stars. I do plan on reading the rest of the series, and I'm hoping as the characters get more fleshed out and the series progresses, I will enjoy it more and more. Just so you know, if you are interested in reading this, it's 6 main books. I don't know about any novellas or things like that. I know there is a novella. I know it is recommended to be read after you finish the entire series, so I don't know exactly how that works, but I don't know how many additional books there are to that, but I will say that this is a very entertaining book and perfect for spooky season. All right. The next 2 books that I want to talk about are actually online only. Or not online only in the sense that you can only get them online, but I happen to read them online. The first book is 12. This is the, let me see if I can get this to focus. Hold on. Let's turn the, can you see that? There we go. 12 by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This was a very entertaining novella. It's basically a sequel novella to the Natural series written by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It's a short book. It's like 135 pages or something. Literally can be read in one sitting. Super, super easy to finish. But it basically follows the story of the Natural's children after they've graduated from their training program at the FBI and they're now full-fledged adults. So Cassie has basically taken over running the FBI program for the Naturals and is looking for new recruits. And then meanwhile, Dean, Michael are currently physically at the FBI along with Sloan because they are training to become actual agents. And then you have, I'm blanking on her name, the other female character, Leah, I want to say, together with Cassie in the Natural side of things, trying to build up that program for the FBI. But they basically help profile in cold cases. So they all have different elements of them that are heightened because of unfortunate events that have happened in their past. So for example, Cassie, our main character, can profile people and get very easily into the mind of a serial killer because her mom used to be a medium. And then you have Dean, who is also like her. He can also profile serial killers and help with cold cases because his father was unfortunately a serial killer. Michael had a very abusive father, so he can read facial expressions, emotions, subtleness very, very easily. Sloan is excellent with numbers. And then Leah, whose name I don't know for sure. I want to say it's Leah. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, but she is very good at detecting a lie and can switch in and out of personalities very easily. If you're looking for a fun young adult series with crazy cuckoo characters that have a lot of insanity going on around them because they're working on cold cases for the FBI, they get pulled into actual cases for the FBI, there's murders, serial killers galore, and also love triangles and basic teenage drama, then this is definitely your series. This is also the same author who wrote the Inheritance series. So if you've been hearing about the Inheritance games everywhere, this is the same author. I personally feel the Naturals are better than the Inheritance games, and I have read all of the Inheritance series. I did finish reading the Brothers Hawthorne. I need to read The Grandest Game. I have not read that yet, but love this woman and her writing. Would definitely recommend. 12 was a very enjoyable read for me, and it was a solid 3 stars. Okay, then after that, the other book I have on here that I do not have a physical copy of is The Wedding Witch. I absolutely love Erin Sterling. I think she does a great little romance. She's also known as Rachel Hawkins, who actually writes a lot of thriller type books. But Erin Sterling, this pseudonym that she's writing these books under, are basically following the story of Glimmer Falls and a couple of witches and the Penhallow Boys family. It is very Gilmore Girl vibes. It's cozy vibes, cozy mystery vibes, cozy fantasy vibes. It is so cute. This is the 3rd book in the series. The first one is The Ex-Hex. The second one is The Kiss Curse. The 3rd one is The Wedding Witch. This is following the 3rd brother, Bowen, along with his love interest. Basically, the story goes that they are working together to find a magical object that Bowen can then use to bring one of his best friends that accidentally got wiped off the planet and turned into a ghost back from his untimely demise. He gets invited to go to a wedding and shows up with his date, who happens to be the curator of these objects. It just so happens that they're attracted to each other. In the middle of all the turmoil, they get sent back in time. Everything is getting crazy. All kinds of insanity is happening and ensuing. And from there, they just have to figure out how to get back and how to save the timeline. It's very, very entertaining, very, very cute. Would definitely recommend. Great for spooky season. I would rate this a solid 3.5 to 4 stars. The next 2 books I'm actually going to take out from this stack because the rest of the books that I have in this stack are all within one world. So we'll talk about all of these in just a second. But the last 2 standalone books that I have is This Spells Love. This is a book of the month pick from November of 2023. So I finally got around to this book. It was so cute. It's basically following the story of this young woman, Sophie, I want to say is her name. No, sorry, Gemma. Gemma and Dax. Dax is her best friend. Gemma ends up wishing upon... So she basically goes to her aunt's quirky little shop. Her sister is there too. And she ends up wishing that she could forget her ex. And in this process, she gets sent to a completely different timeline where her best friend Dax no longer knows who she is. The timeline does cause a lot of miscellaneous craziness things to happen within that world. But basically, it's a chance for Gemma and Dax to get to know each other again. And she has to decide whether or not she made a mistake in thinking that her ex was the right person for her and whether it was actually Dax that was always the one that was meant to be as her best friend now that she has a chance to see him in a new light. Very, very cute novel. Very, very fun. Very entertaining. Easy to read in one sitting. Like literally you can just sit down with this book and a cup of tea and finish it in a day. It is so cute. Would definitely recommend. Perfect for spooky vibes, but perfect for fall. Perfect for witchy, spells gone wrong kind of vibes. Definitely more cozy, more fun, and small town. I would give this book a solid 3 stars again. Would definitely recommend for spooky season. Next up, I have Phantasma. Chef's kiss. Love this book. This book is basically Caraval being retold in a dark, kind of like underworld, 7 circles vibe. It is basically a competition that is taking place. And the main character in this basically enters into Phantasma in the hopes of basically paying off the loans that her mother leaves upon her and her sister. She's trying to also figure out where her sister disappeared to. If she wins the competition of Phantasma successfully, then she will get to walk away with one wish, which should hopefully restore everything for her. In the midst of the competition, she also meets a tall, dark, and handsome stranger who also happens to be a phantom or a ghost. It is a paranormal romance between the 2 of them. It's very, very entertaining. It is a little predictable, but it's done very well. And the best thing I can say about this is if you like Caraval, you will like this. This is basically a dark Caraval. It is beautifully written. And Kaylee Smith is actually releasing Enchantra next year. And that book will be following this main character's sister. Overall, great, great, great book. So much fun to read. Would definitely recommend. Again, huge book, 600 and something odd pages. No, I lied. I'm sorry. This is not 600 pages. This is only 492 pages. It just feels like 600 pages to me. I don't know why. But no, 492 page book. Very, very doable. You can definitely finish this in one day. Would definitely recommend. Great, great, great book. Chef's kiss. 5 stars for me. Okay. And now we're going to get into all of the Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti books that I read. Get ready. Okay. I was told by some of my fellow book readers, as well as some of the girls in my book club and my best friend, that I need to experience the Zodiac Academy. Everyone told me it was going to be like Harry Potter for adults. It's a lot of magic. It's a lot of fun. It's a world of 23 books. I became so invested in this series with a love-hate relationship with many of these books. And at this point, I have consumed 11 of them. So let's talk about it. Within the Zodiac Academy series, you are supposed to start with reading The Awakening, Ruthless Fae, and The Reckoning. Those are the first 3 books in the Zodiac Academy series, and it'll kind of introduce you to the world of Solaria, which is a fantasy realm that basically has a bunch of fae, magic, kingdoms, all this kind of stuff. And I'll get into the books in just a second. From there, you're supposed to read the Ruthless Boys series, which is a completely different series taking place in Aurora Academy, which is a part of Solaria, but it's in the more rundown, beaten up, gangster, driven, like gang-driven, like lower echelons of society world. And that is a reverse harem setting, which follows one main female lead character who is basically trying to figure out how her brother died. It is also associated with drugs, gangs. You have references to prostitution, to seedier topics that you would see in poorer, rundown areas, unfortunately, that are also like big town settings. And she basically goes to Aurora Academy to solve the mystery of how her brother died. And she's under the belief that one of the 4 kings who are currently running the school, so basically the leader of the Lunar Brotherhood, who is one of the kings, the leader of the Askira clan, who is one of the kings, one of the most well-known criminals' sons, who actually happens to be an amazing thief and best friends with the Askira clan family. And then last but not least, a very, very, very powerful fae who comes from good money, doesn't have a full understanding of his past, has had a lot of his memories blocked, but is basically one of the strongest faes in the school and is kind of left alone. He's kind of a loner, but a very, very powerful creature, and therefore in title of his power is also known as a king in his own right. It follows these 4 men and this main female. Now, as I said, it is reverse harem. If you don't know what reverse harem is, it's basically when there is one female character, bunch of male characters, and they all have relations. These books are very spicy. Every permutation and combination of a reverse harem that you can think of happens in this book. It was different for me. I have not experienced something like this before. At first, some of the romance I could get behind. By the end of the book, I really struggled with it. But anyways, that's Ruthless Boys. And then from there, you jump back into Zodiac Academy and you pick up from there. So without further ado, let's go through these books. And these are some of the sizes of these books. These are not small books by any works of imagination. They pack quite a punch. Yes, they do. So let's talk Zodiac Academy. The first book, The Awakening, is written as a bully romance. Now, a bully romance basically means that these 2 main characters are consistently getting bullied by the male characters. In the Fae world of Solaria, in order to stake your claim and in order to be respected and in order to hold a place of power, you have to earn it. You have to fight for it. You have to be vigilant about maintaining it, which means that when 2 lost girls who come back to Solaria are found to be some of the most powerful Fae ever to have existed because they suddenly have control of all 4 elements, when previously the max anyone has ever held is 3, and they get thrown back into this world that they've never even known existed, and they are awakened into their powers but have no idea how to use it, are then also told, by the way, you're the lost Vega twins and your father used to be the king of all of Solaria and you're back and we're expecting you to now take over the kingdom again. It's a lot for these 2 twin girls. On top of that, you have the 4 celestial heirs. Now, the 4 celestial heirs are basically the ones who are currently in line to take over for their parents in order to run all of Solaria. When the twin girls, the Vega twins girls' parents passed away, these 4 celestial families were the ones who came together to say, hey, we are going to take care of Solaria as a team, and our children will be raised in this world of opulence and luxury and opportunity, but at the same time be taught, educated in politics, in the way of how to run a country, and also train together so that they can take over caring for the country of Solaria. The boys, needless to say, don't like the twins coming back and trying to take their places of power. So now you have power struggles that are happening. You have the two girls getting consistently bullied by these older characters and the rest of the school. It's very aggressively bullying. It is a bully romance. It is aggressive. The first book, when I finished it, this was a 2-star for me. It was so much. I could not handle it. It was very overwhelming. At the end of the book, I literally started crying because I didn't understand how people could be this cruel. But everyone kept telling me, keep going, keep going, keep going. And apparently I'm a glutton for punishment. So I kept going. So from here, you get to the second book in the Zodiac Academy, which is Ruthless Fae. Ruthless Fae, in my opinion, is a little bit of a filler book, but it continues to allow you to develop the relationships between all of these major characters within the book. You also get to see some of the romances starting to bud. You start to understand some of the ways the guys and the girls are thinking in this book. You also see the girls take subtle revenge moments against the boys, even though they haven't fully come into their powers yet. So I found this a little bit more fun. It was a little bit more entertaining, and it's just the second book in the series. So you don't get a lot of plot twists, but you also get to see some other major characters within this book that do end up coming back throughout the series. So this was a solid 3-star read for me. It was entertaining, it was enjoyable, and it did soften the blow of the first book enough for me to want to keep reading. Also, the cliffhanger at the end of this book was excellent, and that was another reason why I wanted to keep going with the series. Next up, we had book 3, which is The Reckoning. Now, this one I think is my favorite of these first 3 books, and this is the book that'll make you want to keep reading. This is the book where things actually start getting good. The girls actually start learning how to harness their magic. The boys are starting to respect them a little bit more. They do have moments where they call truces, and you can actually see them slowly, begrudgingly try to create a friendship, and they go straight back to bullying. You also get to see a lot more of the important power play characters and how they are influencing the story. Let me tell you, when I finished this book, it was physically painful for me to stop this series and start the Ruthless Boys series. But the reason why everyone says to do that is because characters that are shown in the Ruthless Boys series will start showing up from the moment you pick up book 4 in the Zodiac Academy. So I actually, unfortunately, do have to agree with everyone else and say once you finish this book, you are going to jump into the Ruthless Boys series. And it comes as a shock, and it's a little bit painful, but worth the ride in the end. This book, I would say, was the best one of all of them so far that I have discussed, and this was a solid 4.5 stars for me. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. So then we jump into the Ruthless Boys of the Zodiac. So the first book in this was Dark Fae. This is basically following the story of Elise and then the 4 other kings. So we're following Dante, we're following Ryder, we're following Gabriel, and we're following Leon, sorry. This is god-awful. This book was, again, painful for me to read. I hate the main female character in this entire series. I have an entire series review, so I'm not going to talk too much about this series, but feel free to watch that video when it does come out, or if it already has come out. This series was a lot. I think the boys are wonderful. It's called Ruthless Boys for a reason. If you go into the series thinking that the female character is going to be someone that you can relate to, someone you're really going to like, someone you're rooting for, I sincerely hope you get that if that's what you're looking for. I didn't get that, but I loved the boys. But Dark Fae really, really focuses a lot on Elise, and it pissed me off because I don't like Elise. So this was a 1.5 to 2-star read for me. This was even worse than the Zodiac Academy. Okay, so I said what I said. I'm sorry if you're going to come at me, come at me. I'm totally fine with that. What I will say, and I preface all of this by saying these are only my opinions. It is not a comment on how the authors write. It is not a comment on the story. It is not it is a comment on the story, but it's a comment on the story from the perspective of how the story made me feel. It doesn't take away from the fact that these women have done something incredible. They have created a 23-book series, and I love and hate this series. So I'm not saying that it's not worth reading. I'm not saying I'm not in awe of these women. I'm just saying this particular book didn't speak to me. And I'm just saying that the female lead of this particular book did not speak to me, but I still think it's a very enjoyable read altogether. The second book in the series is Savage Fae. Now, Savage Fae gets a little bit more into the nitty-gritty of the relationships and dynamics between the main girl and the boys. I think part of the reason why it was really hard for me to like the main girl is because she's consistently talking about how she doesn't want to get close to people and she doesn't want to go down like side paths and stuff like that because her focus is figuring out who killed her brother. But then the sheer amount of romance and sexual activities that happen in this book, it's very hard for me to reconcile this idea of her being a sleuth and actually making a difference and being intelligent about it when she does the things she does. But that being said, at this point, she's starting to form relationships with all four of the boys. You get a little bit of a history on all four of the boys as well. You get more clarity on their story, the rivalries within the boys themselves, a little bit of the background of their childhood and all that kind of stuff. You also get introduced to some of the other characters in this book, which are then going to start showing up in the last 4 books of the world of Solaria, which is going to be the Rosalie Oscura, Reverse Harem, Darkmoor Penitentiary series. So I have not read those yet. Those are on the tail end of the Zodiac Academy. But the Savage Fae book was better than Dark Fae, so this was a solid 3-star read for me. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention, the Ruthless Boys series is set 4 years prior to the Zodiac Academy series. So you read the first 3 books of Zodiac Academy, keep in mind that that is set ahead of the Ruthless Boys series. The reason why people say read the Zodiac Academy first 3 books first before you read Ruthless Boys is just because you're understanding the world with the girls. If you are a seasoned fantasy reader, in my humble opinion, you can start with Ruthless Boys and then go into Zodiac Academy. But if you want to have a better understanding of the world, I do admit that it's fun to read the Zodiac Academy books 1 through 3 first and then do Ruthless Boys, with the understanding that the Ruthless Boys characters will show up later in the Zodiac Academy stories, starting at book 4, and that is set prior to what's going on in Zodiac Academy. Next up, you have Vicious Fae. Vicious Fae was more entertaining. It's actually starting to get good. You get more on the mystery of what's actually happened with her brother. I also love the fact that all of the Ruthless Boys books, you get perspectives of the main 4 boys, you get perspective of the main girl, but you also get snippets of memory from her brother. And so the one who's passed away, the one whose murder we're trying to solve. So those parts of this book were very interesting to me. I do think the end of this book was also really fascinating and very entertaining and a great bridge to the 4th book as well, because she does end up mated to one of the characters at the end of this book. I'm so sorry if that's considered a spoiler for you guys. I didn't mean it to be. I'm just letting you know that something fun happens at the end of this book. Then we have book 4, which is kind of a filler book, but you get a lot more character development in this book, and you get to see a lot more growth between the main character and the 4 boys. You also get to see their relationship develop a little bit, but if you're looking for a lot of fun, a lot of fast, a lot of action, that you're not going to find so much in this one. This one is a little bit of a filler book for me, but I do think it was fun to read in the sense that you get more of that character development, more of the relationships between the boys. Again, still don't like the female character lead in this series, but love the boys. So it was really fun to get that dynamic and see the relationship between the boys throughout the course of this book. This was a solid 4-star read for me. Vicious Fae was a 3.5. Then you have Warrior Fae. Now, Warrior Fae is the conclusion of the Ruthless Boys series, and this one was excellent. This one was a solid 4.5-star read for me. It captured my attention. It kept me engaged. You get resolution of a bunch of different things that are happening within the series. You get some resolution of some gang stuff that's going on. You get some resolution in terms of who killed the brother. You get some resolution in terms of how it ties into, Zodiac Academy. You get some really, really beautiful bonus scenes of what happens with the reverse harem situation in their family. It's very well done. And it also sets the stage. Both book 4 and 5 kind of set the stage for what's going to start happening in the Darkmoor Penitentiary series. And also hints at the relationships of these characters with what's going on in Zodiac Academy. So I loved this book. This to me was slightly predictable. Yes, you can kind of know where the ending is going, but it was really nice to get some of those conclusions. And some of the twists and turns were not all predictable, so that was enjoyable to read too. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed Warrior Fae, which made the rest of the series worth it to me. overall, I would say the Ruthless Boys series was a solid 3-star read for me. The first 2 books being not great, and then the last 3 books being more enjoyable for me. But yeah, I do have a full review on each of these books and my thoughts on these books in a separate video. So definitely go check that out if you are interested in hearing more on my take on the Ruthless Boys. From there, we jumped back into Zodiac Academy, where I started by reading Origins of a Academic Bully. I believe you were supposed to read this after book 4, but I just decided to read it ahead of book 4 because it was a nice palate cleanser from Ruthless Boys and kind of gave me a little bit more perspective of some of the main characters in Zodiac Academy going back into that series, and also reintroduced me to that world and some of those characters. I would recommend reading this after book 4, actually. But if you do want to read it before book 4, I think that's totally fine too. But it gives a little bit more understanding of the cliffhanger in book 3 and what we're jumping right into in book 4. So either way, you can read this after book 3, you can read this right before you start book 4, or you can read it after book 4. I misspoke. I recommend reading this before book 4. Sorry. Then we jumped into Shadow Princess, which is book 4 of the Zodiac Academy series. I enjoyed this one. I thought this one was really fun. I really liked the cliffhanger at the end of this book as well. I also really, really, really loved the relationships that are developing in this book. You kind of get a little bit more of a feel of the romance side of the bully romance series. And I really like all the characters in this book. I also like the fact that as you progress through the Zodiac Academy series, you also get more perspectives from the boys' side. And I think that's really fun to read too, because then you get a little bit more of them. And the boys in the Ruthless Boys series are very sweet, very, very loving, very caring, soft. The guys in this are not those things. They're very, very aggressively bullying the girls, but they also begrudgingly start respecting the girls. And there are moments where they go so far as to help the girls because they are starting to appreciate the women in this book. So this was really enjoyable for me. I gave this a solid 4 stars. And then we get to Cursed Fates. It's a massive book. Loved this book. Loved the cliffhanger end of this book. Loved every single moment of ridiculousness that happened in this book. Loved the relationship between the heirs and the Vega twins. Loved the relationship between the Vega twins and the Almighty Sovereign Society. Loved the overall vibes of the romances between Tori and her man and Darcy and her man. Just so much fun. Is it a filler book? Yes. Does it have a great cliffhanger? Yes. Am I biting my nails to get back to this series? Yes. Did I have to take a pause and screw my head on right because I wanted to get through the books that I need to get through for November? Yes. But would definitely recommend. This was a solid 4.5-star read for me. I absolutely loved it. And I'm very much looking forward to jumping back into book 6 because of how the cliffhanger left off on this one. I'm also a little nervous to jump into book 6 because of how the cliffhanger on this one ended. So we'll see where that takes me. But yeah, so 10 books. No, 10 books and a novella in the Zodiac Academy series. And these books are massive. But I did a combination of Kindle, Audible, and physically reading these books. And when I tell you I was glued to these books, I was glued to these books. I also had a lot of time to read this month because my husband had a lot of business trips. And so for me, when I got back home after I had done my work and I got my notes done for all my patients and I took care of the cats and like did my workouts and all that kind of stuff, I majority of the time spent my day sitting on the couch and reading. So that is also how this happened. But do I anticipate reading 25 books in the month of November? No, I do not. One thing I did want to say, I was able to finish every single book on my TBR except for that lovely blue book in this stack right here, which is Throne of Secrets, which is the second book in the Prince of Sin series by Carrie Maniscalco, which is the adult sequel series to Kingdom of the Wicked, which is a young adult series written by Carrie Maniscalco, which is some of my favorite books in the world. I was supposed to read Throne of Secrets by the end of October. However, that book released on October 29th, which is when I was able to get a physical copy of that book. And I happened to be reading Cursed Fates, which I did not finish Cursed Fates until the 30th. So I didn't start Throne of Secrets until the 30th. And I'm not counting it in the October reads because I did not finish the book until November 3rd, which was yesterday. So I will be reviewing that book in the reading wrap up. I just wanted to mention it in passing in case anybody was looking at the list of books that I did finish reading compared to what I had put on my TBR. But because Throne of Secrets ended up releasing so close to the end of October, and the fact that it overlapped with a trip that I took to Arizona for a medical conference, and the fact that I had just finished Cursed Fates, I didn't have enough time to sit and read as much of that book as I would have liked. But I was able to finish it on Sunday, November 3rd, and I will be reviewing it in the November reading wrap-up. But that brings us finally to the conclusion of this video. Thank you so much if you made it this far. I know this is a really long video, so thank you if you made it this far. If this is your vibe and you loved the content today and you love all things books and book recommendations and all these like book related craziness things that I like to do, then definitely consider hitting that subscription button and that notification bell if you haven't done so already. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday and would love to share my crazy bookish vibes with you guys and create a book community for us here in this corner of the internet. Please leave comments below. I love reading comments. I love responding to comments. I love feeling like this is a book club vibe on this YouTube channel. Also, for those of you who are returning, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you so much for engaging with me. This is really special and dear to my heart because I have been looking for a community where I can nerd out with my book love. And while a lot of my friends read and a lot of my friends appreciate reading, we don't always read the same genres. We don't always read at the same speeds. And so I can't always discuss books in the same way in my day-to-day real life, if you will. So it's really beautiful to have this arena to be able to share all of this love and joy that comes from books. That being said, thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll definitely catch you guys on the next one. Bye.